Hey guys, welcome back to Hogan's Drum World. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. We just came off the Labor Day weekend, getting ready for the wind down into winter and everything like that. The outdoor summer shows. Only got a few left, and then we're off again. If you like what you're seeing, please, like, subscribe, and everything like that. I'd really like to get a lot of subscribers, hear comments, so that way I can make more of these beautiful topics for you guys. All right, so today we are going to talk about probably the most important concept that there is to any drummer, and that is time. We're going to talk about time. At least today we're starting a new series talking about time, okay? Because time is what drummers are all about. We set the rhythmic value, we set the tempo for pretty much everything, okay? The few places where the drummer isn't as engaged in the tempo of everything is probably being in more of an orchestral setting where you are actually guided by a conductor, okay? The maestro is the master, okay? So you follow him. But in most other situations, we are responsible for time, okay? So how does time begin? This is probably more about space than time. So basically, when I hit the first note, what's the tempo? How fast are we going? Don't know. All I did was just hit my hands together. Time did not start. Okay? It's only until the second, then time begins. You're thinking, what? Yeah. Until we've created an interval between 2 points, there's no space. If I just have one hit, that goes on forever. But as soon as I make that second hit, then it's duplicated over and over and over and over again for all of eternity. That is the interval. Okay? So when I go, now there's a tempo. You hear it. Okay? Now, when I was playing that, was every interval absolutely perfect? Who knows? The universe knows. Because in the universe, that interval, that's known as an absolute. That distance between those 2 points is together forever for all eternity. Okay? So that's getting a bit physics, a lot of that type of thing. And it's true. That tempo will stay that way forever. Is it 120? 118? 118.009 billion, whatever? Okay. Doesn't matter. Okay. So that is how time starts. It's all about that first interval. Okay? So, when I hit that, okay, it has weight. Okay? And so, time isn't just a straight line. Okay? It's like a cone. Until you get right down to the bottom of the note. Zap. Okay? That is the pocket. The bottom of the cone is the pocket. Think of it like this. You guys remember Star Wars? Remember the first episode when they had the Death Star? And they had to go with their X-Wing fighters and shoot the bomb down a 3-foot hole? to destroy the Death Star because that was the only way it could happen? What were the odds in that? Being shot at and chased and everything like that? It was an impossible shot, okay? Well, guess what? That's what we're doing every single time we're going for the pocket. Okay? If you're down in the pocket, you'll feel it. You know it's there. Boom, solid. Oh, God, that's great. Yep, absolutely great. Because everybody is right there in the pocket. But maybe you overshot the hole a little bit, hit on the front side of that curve there. And it's like, oh, okay, well, you're a little in front of the beat, is what they say. A little in front of the beat, okay? Or you're playing a slower song and you just missed that pocket and you hit on the back side of the cone, okay? Well, now you're on the back side of the beat, okay? And that is, and sometimes that's desirable. Miles Davis liked his drummers to play on the front side of the beat. He liked them to push the tempo just a little. And then, other times, I'll play with jazz players or blues guys, and they're like, they want you on the back side of the beat. Let that just hang there for a sec. Bam, bam, okay? And knowing whether you're in the pocket or the front side or the back side is something that you're really just going to have to learn. You're going to have to discover for yourself. I mean, I don't think there's, this is a good explanation, but until you know how to move that beat around or how to move things in the right direction, it's very, it's going to take you time. And that's all right. Time is what we're talking about today. The other thing is that, well, shoot, if you're all the way outside that cone, well, then you're just playing goofy. You're not even in the game. All right, get back in the pocket. All right, and it's going to happen a lot. I guarantee it. Okay. So, what we talked about was the absolute. Boom, 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 boom. That is fantastic. And I encourage you to practice always with a metronome, or if you're practicing to loops, arpeggios, sequences, whatever. As long as it's got a good steady tempo that you can play to, and you can feel that beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. If you can do that, that's fantastic, okay? Because that's going to help you if you play in an ensemble situation. Whether you're in a percussion ensemble, where it can be very strict, you want to be very tight. Whether you're in drum corps or marching band, where you're playing with many, many different musicians, all playing the same instrument as you at the same time. You've got to be solid. And that's another thing that's very important, to have a very good sense of tempo. You all got to be playing together at the same time. Same with a lot of other groups. If you're playing progressive rock, very reliable on. You have to be extremely reliable on time and tempo, because a lot of things are happening. A lot of complicated things are going on, and if you're not there, the whole house will fall in. Same thing with groups that pop bands or things like that, where you're playing with sequencers, or you're syncing to the video screen behind you with all the videos going, or you've got to sync with this, or same thing with pit work. If you're doing musical theater or that type of thing, you've got to make sure your cues are dead bang on. You're not just playing drums for the song, you're also playing sound effects and things like that in the background as well. So it's good to have those things very well dialed in. That's what I'm going to tell you guys about strict time, okay? Then there is fluid time, okay? This is a different type of time. And this is the type of time that most of us will deal with in a more regular basis, especially when you play with bands, different types of bands. where time doesn't. Time is very fluid. I especially got the feel of this when I was playing steel drum and I was playing in the Caribbean and places like that. We were playing reggae, we were playing salsa, calypso, merengue, all those different styles of music. But mostly in the reggae, is that I noticed that there was this push and pull. The tempo wasn't as straightforward as you thought. It tended to have this rocking horse motion, almost like a clock pendulum going back and forth. It would kind of go forward and then it would back up, and it would go forward and back. It just had that flow, and and of course I always say, that somehow it's generated by the ocean, that living by the ocean all that time and feeling the waves push and pull on the shore, I just noticed that correlation between the two elements, because I would be sitting on the beach all day and I just hear the water just washing up on the shoreline, and then I go play that night, and it'd be like, yeah, it had that same kind of feel. So it does have a more that push and pull. And then I noticed when I started touring with a blues band in the 90s, and we were playing traditional Memphis Delta blues, and a lot of the much older blues players, and they had that push-pull feel as well, and it was much more fluid. Same with jazz. A lot of jazz guys, actually, tempos are really solid, but they'll tend to fluff things around a little bit, just for fun. And the thing is that when a jazz player does it, you notice it. And that's what I love about it. It's another element that they can add to their music to give you a really unique experience, and that's what's beautiful about it. And if you get a chance to go see good jazz bands, I definitely would recommend it. It's a great experience. We'll talk about that on another episode. So fluid time. So then we get in with the band players, okay? And you get in a band, and especially if you're in your first rock band or somebody like that, and you're playing with the group, and everybody gets excited, hey, we're getting to play our favorite song, or getting our favorite part of the song, and then all of a sudden they're tearing off, and it's like, they start playing it real fast because they're all excited, okay? And the thing is that that is something, again, this is a medical thing. So when a drummer is in his rest state, our hearts beat roughly about 85 beats per minute, okay? And the thing is that when you get excited, your adrenaline goes up, and so does your heart rate. And the thing is that how we judge tempo has a lot of connection to our heart in our brain, okay? Because we tend to use our clock, our heartbeat, as our internal clock. It's a subconscious thing, but yes, how you create tempos in your head is based on your heart rate. And when your heart rate gets excited, well, it speeds up, and then your relative tempo in your brain is also going to speed up, and then everybody in the band speeds up. That's exactly what is happening scientifically, okay? Your adrenaline goes up, you're going to play faster. If you mellow out, you can play slower. If you're very mellow, you play very slow. and then on and on and on. So the thing is that a lot of times when I'm playing in bands like that, you feel like you're on a stagecoach. You're getting on the stagecoach, and it's like you got 6 horses, strapped on the front, and they're all wanting to go in different directions, and some are excited and some aren't, and da 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 da. And here we go. Here goes the song. You set the tempo, and the horses take off, and then all of a sudden they're going faster, and you're trying to go, whoa, hold it back, or they're not going fast enough, and you're like, go faster, come on, let's go, And that is, and you're doing that all night long, and it can be, that's where the real work comes in. You already know the songs, you're playing the songs, but you're hearing what's going on the stage around you, and everybody's tearing off, or somebody's trying to push the tempo forward, and you're trying to pull it back, and you're like, and then so that's when you start playing again to the backside of the beat. You don't want to slow down as much as you would like to, okay? You just want to feel it slowing, give it a slight slow down. So that way when you're pulling them back, but you're not yanking on them really hard, you're just like, hey, pull it back, pull it back, pull it back, pull it back a little bit. If they're not going fast enough, if you're like, oh my God, this song is a dirge, come on, let's go. Then you can start pushing the beat, a little bit. But you got to do it subtly, okay? You don't just, oh, here's the new tempo, it's like, you reserve that for, the guys that need that, okay? But for the most part, most of the time, you don't want to be the one on stage changing the tempo in the middle of a song and pushing everything forward. A, because the audience is going to hear it and they're going to single you out because why is the drummer all of a sudden playing faster? Okay? We don't want to be that guy. What you want to do is start pushing it forward, but you still want to be playing with the ensemble. You still all need to be playing together in the pocket, even though you're moving the pocket forward, okay? That's the idea, is to gently nudge everything forward. Same thing when you're pulling it back, okay? It's just, hey, relax, pull it back, pull it back, pull it back, gently. Now, in the exception to the rule, okay? And I think, I got about 4 or 5 guys going, oh yeah, I know this guy. You're gonna have, every now and then, you're gonna have somebody in the band that's like, hey, he just will not go off tempo. He's playing the song at whatever tempo he wants to be at, and everybody else is looking at you like, no, this is not right. What do? You go get the other guys, you give them the nod, and then you guys go off on that tempo, and you leave him be. You cut him loose. Sometimes you're one of the horses in the stagecoach go lame on you. You just have to cut it loose. But the thing is, here's how this differs. You're not the one they're looking at. He's the one they're looking at, because you all 4 went this way. He went that way, and he's off, and it sounds off, and people are going to go, he was off, okay? And then maybe he'll get the message and get back on track, hopefully, But the idea is we can push the tempo forward, we can pull the tempo back. And we have to be fluid. We have to be listening to what the other guys are doing. If the general consensus is, hey, everybody's like, we really should be going forward, and you'll get the nods. A lot of times if the lead singer goes around and he's like, doing this, behind his back, he'll do that behind his back, and you're like, yep, bring it up, or everybody's like, doing that, like that, bring it down, okay. You got to communicate. Always communicating on stage. But that's the thing. So is the tempo wrong? Are we playing the song wrong? Because now we're changing the tempo? This tempo through all infinitum and space? No. No, because the audience doesn't know. The audience is listening to a great song. You guys know that you're pulling it back because you want it to sound good. It's like, hey, we got a little out of control there. Let's bring it back, all right? So allowing the time to be fluid is okay. Now, exception to the rule, okay? I shouldn't have to explain this, but if you got a band that all of a sudden you guys are starting off at one tempo and ending at another tempo all the time, yeah, that's something where you get with the guys and go, listen, hey, I know this might suck, but hey, can we practice a few times and just play to a click track or a metronome or that, or anything. But we want to, let's get locked in on tempos. We're getting out of control. Especially if you're going, 10, 20 BPM faster or slower. That's a noticeable change, or throughout the song, it's speeding it up, slowing it down, speeding it up, slowing it down. That inconsistency can stand out. If it's standing out, that's one thing. If it's not, that's another. but it's standing out. You know, it's like, oh, so, so that's fine, and it's okay to play to a click track, or to play to that, because those are the times that I need them. There was several, like you said, if I'm in the studio, I'm laying tracks. There's definitely going to be a click track. I've got to know that I'm laying the beats down at the right tempo and everything like that. So I got to do that. Click track, or I'll use a metronome or a loop, or there's a sequence. A lot of times in the 80s, definitely in the 80s mostly, I played to a lot of sequencers, early sequencers. And so I had to have headphones on, and listen to the sequencers. Nowadays I've got my in-ear monitors, so I can get a click track and a sequence if I wanted to. But that way I can be locked in, because those sequences are integral to that part of the song or to the song itself, and so you got to be solid. So that's very important, and I'm hoping that that starts coming back more and more. More hybrid drummers, more people playing more complicated, arrangements. That'd be fantastic, especially when you're doing, modern day pop songs. Yeah, there's a lot of sequencing, there's a lot of tracks, there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's like you got to be solid if you're playing live drums over that type of stuff. So that's very important. So there was this one situation where I was with a Steely Dan cover band, Steely Dan tribute, and they were very adamant that I had all the tempos, and I had everything like that. So I had to fire off the tempos to click off the songs, and I had to lock into those tempos. What's funny about that is one of the songs that we did was Bodhisattva. And if you haven't heard this song, if you're not familiar with Steely Dan, shame on you. Go out right now, buy a Steely Dan album. No, go listen to Steely Dan. And there's a song called Bodhisattva, okay? And if you listen to it, and if you put a click to it, you're gonna find out this song ramps up real fast. It goes from 0 to 100 in a very short, no, not 0, but it speeds up quite a bit. It's a noticeable speed up. And I always try to explain that to those guys, and they're like, no, it was always a perfect time. Yeah, if you click it when it starts, and it starts pretty quick, and then within 2 bars, especially when the keyboards come in, it's like, yeah, it's 10, 15 BPM faster. It's incredible. But anyways, but playing along to click track, playing along to sequencers, yes, that's very important. And like I said, as you're developing as a musician, you really need to focus on being able to play in the pocket all the time. Because you never know when you're doing session work, pit work, whatever. You got to be able, the one thing that gets you called back is, well, he can play these really fancy riffs. No, it's because the guy can play in time, okay? Charlie Watts, one of the greatest drummers to ever live. He played a few interesting riffs, but he had about, 50-something years of just playing the best pocket drumming you ever heard. So, I'll leave it at that. So, just remember, you're Luke Skywalker, man. We're trying to get the torpedo down that 3-foot hole and blow up the Death Star, just like this. Yep. And you got to do that over and over and over and over again. Well, anyways, that's it for this episode. I hope you liked this talk about time, and I hope it gave you some insights in what you're going through. Please send me, put comments in there. Let's talk about some of your actual situations where you had to deal with difficult timekeeping, or if you had to deal with a musician that just couldn't fall in line and just couldn't stay in time with the rest of the band, how you work through those problems. All right, I look forward to talking to you guys soon. We're going to talk more about time in another episode.